Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today with Sonata and Microsoft as we talk about accelerating transformation with Dynamics 365. We've got a really good hour planned for you. We have two customers with us today that are going to talk about their journey from AX on-premise to Dynamics 365 finance and operations in the cloud. If you go to the next screen, please. And I'm Marshall Sansbury. I'm a solution specialist with Microsoft on business applications in the manufacturing enterprise. I've been with Microsoft about 3 years, but have been working in the biz app space for about 20. Was building applications back in the .com days, so very familiar with challenges businesses face and using technology to overcome those challenges. We also have Laura Foll with us, who's a digital advisor for Dynamics F&O with our partner Sonata. And Sonata has been a Microsoft partner for over 26 years, and they have 18 gold certifications on our products and services. And I'm very excited to have Rhett Thompson join us as well, who's the IT director at Kent Watersports. And he'll go through his journey from the AX on-prem to Dynamics F&O and really go through the challenges that he faced and the outcome of that transition. And we also have Ryan Metzner with us with US Venture. He also is going through that journey today. I believe he's scheduled to go live in March, so he can really give you the nuts and bolts of what it takes to go from an on-prem ERP system, Dynamics AX, to Dynamics F&O in the cloud, and all of the advanced features that that's going to unlock for his organization. And we also have Tour DuPont joining us as well. He's my colleague at Microsoft. He's on the global customer success and a solution architect for all things Dynamics 365 finance and operations. And he works really closely with our customers as they make that migration from on-prem to the cloud. And we also have Rathi Rao with us today, who is again with Sonata, and she's works with them on their business development side. Next slide, please. And so again, I'm Marshall Sansbury. I'm with Microsoft. I've been with Microsoft about 3 years as a business application specialist for all things Dynamics and Power Platform. Next slide, please. I just kind of want to set the stage here for just a minute. We've seen a dramatic change in digital disruption over the last several years, and even more so in the last, the year of the pandemic. Things are changing and changing quickly. So yesterday in manufacturing, look at the car there. How many parts and pieces do you think are in that automobile as it was manufactured back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 80s? And think about a car today. How many components and parts and pieces that come from multiple vendors that all need to be coordinated to make sure that that end product is done efficiently and on time and on budget. Distribution, the same thing. In the past, it was all disconnected systems. It was getting products from one place to another and all the different parts and pieces and technology that needed to collaborate to make that happen. And today, the technology has made that incredibly efficient. And the modern world could not exist without a technology efficient distribution system. And in retail, we've seen dramatic changes in retail from technology as well. It used to be the buyers would make their best guess at what customers wanted, and sometimes they got it right, sometimes they didn't, and it was really one size fits all. And with the technology today, you have access to customer data from all the different points of interaction, and it really allows you to create products that are more personalized for consumers today. Next slide, please. And so some of the things we've seen over the years is, in customer insights, that customers are changing. We know that. This data here is a bit dated, but it says by 2020, customer experience will overtake price and product as the key brand differentiator. And I think we see that today. Customers are looking for an experience. They want to buy from an organization that knows them and understands them and meets their needs. And digital has changed everything. Just looking at Internet of Things, 79% of companies are already using IoT to track customers and products and supply chains to improve operations. Data is the key to everything, and execs anticipate disruption. This survey from MIT said 90% of executives believe that their business will be disrupted by digital transformation. And yet within that same study, only 44 of those executives feel like they're prepared for that. So there's a long way to go, and we've got some good customers on the call today that kind of talk through their journey, and we're very excited to hear from them. Next slide, please. And so with traditional ERP systems, they're isolated, disconnected applications. They're stitched together with APIs. You typically will have 2, 3, and in one case, one customer I was speaking with just recently has 23 different ERP systems across the organization that are all isolated or connected with APIs in various ways. And they're typically complex, slow, and very expensive, and difficult to update, maintain, and operate. And can you imagine, with 23 different ERP systems within an organization, when a patch comes out, typically that will cause an impact to your organization because you have unforeseen circumstances due to maintaining those on-prem systems. And so Microsoft has really worked with our customers over a long time, many years, to develop our cloud, and it's all built on customer experience and customer data, and really around these couple of things: empower your people, your employees, to make intelligent decisions and to track those decisions and to get insights from that, and to engage your customers, understand what are they looking for, what do they need, what do they needed out of you as an organization. And we're here today to talk about business applications, which encompasses our Dynamics platform and our Power platform. And within Dynamics, the data is fluid from a lead, from someone who may want to buy your product, who could be anonymous, all the way through to cash when they buy something and when you service them after the sale. And the Power platform with Power BI gives you insight across that whole ecosystem, whether it's Office 365 or Azure or Dynamics or even other systems that are connected into your organization to derive those insights. What are customers doing? What are they buying? How could you be more efficient in servicing those customers? Next slide, please. And then today we're here primarily to talk about finance and operations, the on-premise journey to the cloud. And I can share this Forrester report with you. If you put your note in the chat window, I'll be glad to share this report to you. But it's through our Microsoft customers that have been through this journey, have typically seen a 60% ROI on their business, a 28% increase in employee productivity. And here's a cost that a lot of the customers I speak with, we just need to make sure we understand this, but the legacy cost avoidance. So today, your on-premise systems, your 23 ERP systems you're using to run your business, there's cost to maintaining those servers, there's cost to those licenses, there's cost to updates, there's employee cost to manage those systems. And when you update to the cloud, we'll hear in just a few minutes about the efficiency that is gained through that process. And next slide, please. So I'd like to introduce Laura Foll. She's with our partner Sonata, and she's going to give you just an overview of how they help our customers, on that journey from on-prem to cloud. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Marshall, and welcome everybody. Just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a feel for who Sonata is. So we are Sonata. We are the partner working with Microsoft on these upgrades from AX12 and other legacy applications, AX 2009, et cetera, to the D365 platform. We've been around. Sonata has actually been in business for 34 years, providing IT solutions and services to organizations such as yourself. And you can see kind of our specs as far as our revenue is about $500 million a year, as well as we have about 4,200 team members as part of our team within Sonata itself. As Marshall did mention, we've been a Microsoft partner for 26 years. Our legacy with Microsoft is quite extensive as far as our relationship with them and partnering with them on these types of initiatives that we're doing. We have 18 certifications with regard to gold competencies within our organization. And so overall, what you'll see from all of that is really getting the security for the upgrade that you need. And we've done this a few times. So we have both a digital platform where we work on our digital aspects, such as omni-channel and mobility and IoT and big data, et cetera, in the system as well as in multiple other systems. And we have our own platform IP that we've produced, and you'll see Brick and Click and Modern Distribution and Commodity Trading, Risopia, Cartopia, and Halosys. Those are all products that we've developed, and they're really our own IP that we've developed. I think what we look forward to the opportunity to work with each of you, and our real forte is really our one-stop shop. We are our one-stop for all of the solutions that you need. We've done approximately 80 of these upgrades across the geographies, and we are a global organization. So obviously we've worked extensively with multiple organizations across the globe, and we've done about 80 upgrades thus far. 24 assessments, which is what we're here to talk about. So assessments will be coming up in my next slide. We'll talk a little bit about what that entails within the organization, but you'll see some of our key metrics with regard to our modernization and capabilities and the engineering tools that we have for partners with regard to the upgrades themselves. So the big question, of course, Marshall talked to a little bit is, what's our drivers for modernization on D365? So our drivers really have to do with industrial digitization. So this is where we basically say we want to become digital. We're in the industry, but we're going from our industrial perspective and footprint that we have, and we're moving it into more of a digital transformation. So that's one of our drivers. Re-imaging the business in the cloud. So we're going from on-premise solutions to our cloud solutions and taking advantage of what cloud has to offer each of us in that cloud environment within the organization. And the need to scale. Obviously in an environment where we're either acquiring and doing some M&A activity, or we're simply going into other fields and diversifying our organization. We need the ability to quickly and easily go into those additional areas that we want to invest in our organization. We need a platform that will enable that. Business process standardization across geographies. So if you are a global organization, I think you understand the importance of establishing a foundation and a platform with regard to your systems and portraying that across the organization and dispersing it across the organization. Improving employee productivity and efficiencies. So there are many processes within our own organization that can benefit from D365 and improving its productivity and improve efficiencies. And the technology landscape, we're going to modern. So obviously everybody wants to be in the cloud. So they're obviously looking to expand into the cloud for the reason of simply being able to show a modernized environment that they're working within. And then there's the entire end of life for the stack. So there is a stack that Microsoft has indicated that there will be some lifetime expiration of the Dynamics AX and SQL and OS in the environment. So those are really drivers on why organizations such as yourself do go to D365. But we take a slightly different approach. So instead of just a simple lift and shift of taking what you have now and moving you to the cloud, we look at things as more of a business transformation-led approach. So an approach by which we look at your organization and we assess, one, how can you take advantage of the new features and functionalities that are available in the product, while also being able to take some of the efficiencies that are gained in the product and apply them towards your organization, so that we start to transform your journey through the system and transfer your business into a more business transformation-led approach, really around the digital needs. What's your digital business and digital needs within the organization? What will be your technology strategy moving forward? So will it be on the cloud? Will it be using mobile devices? Will it be AOT? What will be your technology strategy itself? And then how do we migrate? You know, that's a very fearful topic among everybody on moving data from an on-prem to a cloud, as well as just simply moving ERP systems from one version to another, is how do we migrate? So we do provide that path and that comfort level, and we understand the pain points around that. So what we do when we deploy and do these steps into D365 is we look at modernization as what we call platformation. So platformation is a trademark terminology that we've come up with, and our platformation way of doing things is really moving you into that digital and agenda, and our platformation is our first point. So we go to you and we talk to you as an organization and say, do you have an agenda? Do you have platformation as being your standard? And what is your roadmap behind that in the system? So it's important that we understand your goals as an organization in order to help you achieve those goals moving forward. So we need to understand what those are. Then we perform an actual assessment. So based on our assessment, what is the overall technology landscape? We look at your comparison between your old system from as is to 2B, and what our recommendations going to be for your system and migrating your system into the cloud. And your business process. We talk about OCM and managing organizational change management within that, because that's going to be a very big component as you migrate into the cloud itself. And then there's, of course, execution. So then once we've got our, in essence, what I consider our blueprint, it allows us to then take that and go into an execution mode and plan for upgrades and rollouts. And we'll talk about Microsoft's automatic updating of the environments and how that's going to be managed and controlled within the application itself. Next slide. Great, so here's part of our, just so you know, our modernization assessment. So remember, we talked about doing an assessment within your organization, and there's two types of assessments that we do. We do a functional assessment, and that's really all about the processes and procedures that you're using on your existing application today, and what that's going to look like in the D365 environment, and more importantly, where your pain points are with your current application and how the new D365 environment could address those. So we're addressing those on a functional level. And then there's, of course, the technical assessment. What is our current landscape and our foundation and our footprint for our environment that we have right now? And what's it going to take to migrate that code to the new environment? And of course, as part of that also is by transferring that data, it's also understanding that your data will be sitting in the cloud now and what those components are that allow you to transition into the cloud and requirements that you'll have in the cloud. And then based on all of that, we come up with an upgrade strategy for you. It's not just, okay, we've done this and we're going to give it to you, but instead we're going to talk strategically about how we then take that assessment, our recommendations and blueprint, and we turn that into an upgrade strategy. And the upgrade strategy will consist of understanding the migration plan over to the new environment, reuse of any of those code layers or production facilities that we've set up in the system, use of the product, features, functionality, et cetera, will be included in that upgrade strategy and plan. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the efforts and the commercials associated with that. And we're going to define success criteria from there in our ROIs and our business benefits. With that, I'll certainly look forward to some questions at the end, but I'll pause there and I'll transition off to Ryan Metzner, who's one of our great clients from US Ventures, who's going to speak to you a little bit about their experience that they're going through with regard to that. Over to you, Ryan.
Thank you, Laura. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. So I'm Ryan Metzner. I work for a company called US Venture. You can actually move to the next slide, please, if you don't mind. Yep, perfect. So I work for a company called US Venture. Marketers will probably hate me, but we're the biggest little company in the Midwest that you probably never really heard of. So we are an oil and gas company, natural gas, lubricants, and then US Auto Force is the second largest supplier of tire and undercar parts in the nation. And so Breakthrough and iGen are recent acquisitions, and they're more data companies. So our tagline will be the best provider of transportation products and insights, driving the world forward. And as a blanket statement, we looked at Dynamics 365 and realized that it truly, the core product fits the core functionality for most of our businesses. So that really helps us out a lot. So we are currently on-prem and migrating to the cloud. And with this timeline, I'd say we're actually been on AX since about 2011. Migrated to 12 in about November. You know, I'll spare you the dates, but a few things to point out here. We've actually engaged with Sonata on a few migrations with this AX to D365, and then currently our migration to the cloud. And some things to say. They truly were a partner. we delivered all of our projects, on time, on scope, and on budget. And if it wasn't on scope, it was due to us. So I would say, these guys know what they're talking about. As Laura was talking about the phases of interaction, they came, they understood our business before we even engaged in an actual work effort. So these guys were truly partners to us. So next slide, please. So some things that we love, some are on-prem, some are actually in the cloud too, but just that I wanted to call out. So RSAT, so regression suite automation testing, our tool, truly we brought that on around 10.0. So it decreased the time to test, reduced our testing by 1 week, and and helped keep us compliant with and take advantage of all the new features that Microsoft is coming out. And there's a lot. It's a daunting task to keep an eye on those things. So for our set, we actually grouped many of our test cases together, linking them, and we call them suites. So it really helped a lot. We're actually able to fully automate certain areas of our work, and so examples would be like cache creation, collections, and tax. So for me, CI, CD capabilities and environment creation, they kind of go together. We no longer have to deploy a whole bunch of VMs and do heavy configuration for on-prem. Environment deployment is really easy for us. So essentially went from like a week to spin up some new environments down to a few hours. Another piece that we really like is, now that we're in the cloud, Power Platform. So we're already a Power BI user, and then with Power Apps, and one of our companies, US Autoforce, is currently migrating onto the platform. We're looking at inventory options, cycle counting with Power Apps, and then we can also use Power Automate to connect D365 to a CRM tool that we currently have. So integrations are relatively point and click with all the connectors that Microsoft provides. Next slide, please. Oh, nope, back one, please. There we go. So some things that we are exploring that we really like is the inventory service that Microsoft provides. In the busy tire season, we have some very large car dealerships, Fords, General Motors, that are actually pointing their systems at our systems for inventory. And in the Midwest, when the snow flies, demand just skyrockets. So we really have a need for real-time inventory exposure to our customers, and this service is really helpful for us. Another thing that we're looking at is the cloud and edge service. So this will allow us to run warehouse workloads with intermittent connectivity. Sometimes when we do acquisitions, it takes a while to get a warehouse connected, and so we're really interested in this service. For the future state. The remote assist, so that absolutely has value in our warehouse. We did connect a HoloLens to D365, showed our inventory. Just exploratory, like a bimodal project that we did. We are really interested in hands-free picking of products, and if we could essentially even show a driver where the product's located, have them pick it with voice in the HoloLens, we're gonna work towards that. Another thing we're interested in is for another company of ours, US Lubricants. They have service guys that go out in the field and repair certain products or certain pumps and oil and gas related things. So we also see an opportunity for the Dynamics 360 guides with the HoloLens. So what we don't really like, and this is really, I should really blanket this slide, is everything that we've been faced with technically challenges. Microsoft has, we've always gotten through it. Sonata and Microsoft have been rock stars in getting us through this. And some of these things are like BYOD is essentially where we're at in our process and migrating. We're ultimately waiting for data lake. to become available, and because we wanted to keep our BI reports running, we just chose a bring your own database option. So currently, cloud refactoring, we always knew that we were going to go to the cloud, so we kept an eye on what we were building on-prem to do that. But with some of the things we could write for some of the things we had to refactor, we could write local file shares for our imports and exports, and we had to refactor that code to to send it to an SFTP, because the cloud won't have access to our network. So one thing we noticed is for us is we would have to whitelist a lot of the whole central region. So we had to do a few workarounds to get past that, but again, a non-issue. And then so for BYOD, we had to do a lot of data entity creations to get the data we needed into our database. There's a ton of batch jobs that we need to populate the tables, so it's a stress on our system. Pushing data on-prem is a struggle, but it's essentially for us, it's just where we're at in the process. So we are patiently waiting for data lakes general availability. And then one of the things, troubleshooting essentially. Sorry, go back. So essentially just troubleshooting. With on-prem, we had access to all of our stuff, VMs, SQL, and file shares, service fabric. So we'll get used to this, and I'm sure if we have some needs and desires, Microsoft will work with us to make it available. So overall, our experience has just been fantastic with Sonata and Microsoft and the product, and again, it works for essentially all of our businesses. Next slide. So thank you very much. Rhett.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much. That's a great story, and we look forward to some Q&A at the end. So please stick around, and we'll hopefully have some great questions that come in. Right now, we'll introduce Rhett. Rhett Thompson is with Kent Water Sports, another one of our good customers. And so, Rhett, it's all yours.
Great, thanks, Marshall. I'm Rhett Thompson. I'm the Corporate Director of IT at Kent Sporting Goods, and I'm primarily schooled as a software developer. I moved to remarkably way back when, and have been involved mainly in manufacturing and distribution for some time. I think they wanted to keep me in sales after they had a look at my code, and decided better move in sales. Nonetheless, a little bit of information about Kent Water Sports and who we are. I would call us a premier provider of outdoor sporting equipment. And until very recently, we were a privately held smaller company comprised of many other smaller companies. One thing that's unusual about our organization is that these companies or business units compete with each other. They're actually selling the same product. So that provides us with some management challenges and introduces complexity into our company. In summary, we 7 legal entities, we have 7 balance sheets, and currently we have 10 P&Ls, but we're growing by acquisition, so you never know what's going to be happening there. We are a multi-channel company in that we sell to big box stores, we sell to mom and pop stores, and we also sell to consumers as well. So there's some complexity, some additional complexity there. And there are multiple brands in our organization. Currently, we're sitting at 20, and if you've been to Costco, you've probably seen our products sitting in the water sports aisle, life jackets, stand-up paddle boards. Some numbers, we're 160 users in the organization. We got about 50,000 SKUs, 10,000 customers, and about 34,000 warehouse locations. One thing that's amazing about a company is there's absolutely no use of Excel at all across the organization. So that's quite an outlier there. We used a number of ISV solutions, and currently use Microsoft e-commerce. We use Sauna. We used an application called Extension for kitting, Vantage Point for EDI, and Logistics for TMS. We are very strong users of Power BI, exceptional usage across our organizations, corporate sales reps, executives, great success story there. And we had multiple customizations, including credit control, mobile warehouse devices, shipping and packing functionality. By the way, I was just kidding about the Excel. Of course, we're strong users of Excel across all organizations. So I think if you can go back in time and we say, why D365? I mean, that is a question that's still asked by some of our users. And our system, our AX system was performing well. We had absolute acceptance of ERP as the sole source of truth in our organization. Our users were very familiar and they trusted the system, and we were self-reliant. So why? Well, basically that quote is right up there. the system as I envisaged it. We have not seen it yet. The future is so much bigger than the past. And that's the way that our executives looked at it, that there was much more coming down the pike with D365. We're aware of this disruption that Marshall was talking about earlier on, the cliched Amazon effect, and we were actually being impacted by it. Our existing model was mostly a standard business model through partners, but we needed something to help us handle this transformation, and the omni-channel became very important to us. We still wanted to maintain good relationships with our traditional customers, but we wanted to attract new customers. We wanted to increase the participation in water sports. That is our goal, really, to increase that participation. And most important of all, we wanted to get in charge of our data. So D365 was a natural choice for us. It laid the foundation for all the future roadmaps that we're going to develop in. It was a simplified progression from AX 2012 and the first drove to a combined source of truth. It improved our relationships with our customers. Generally, it opened up new demographics, and it allowed us to actually be in a proactive mode rather than a reactive mode. From an IT director point of view, it was an evergreen system, and that was key for us. We can go to the next slide. So on partner selection, we had good relationships with a number of partners, primary relationship with a large provider from the Midwest. They provided some of the infrastructure and expertise that we were using, but we started thinking about D365 after our first summit conference. We had received a lot of conflicting data about the ability to convert. Some people were saying, you cannot go from R2, you got to go from R2 to R3 to then to D365. And some were saying it's a one-step process. Others said it was actually foolish. Some of our partners actually said it was foolish to convert all our data. Well, that's not where I come from. And I was fortunate enough to actually be introduced to Satish and Sonata through a missed webinar that I didn't attend. And he phoned me and we started talking about it. And over time, I met with some of the key architects and senior executives at Sonata. We were exposed to great tools that could help our pilgrimage and our movement to D365, some great dinners, of course. And Sonata were able to access our environment with the LCS tools. And this helped them to provide a very close estimate to how long it would take and how much complexity was involved in the actual conversion, actually looking at each of the individual objects. So the decision was really based on completeness of conversion. I mean, we had reviewed 3 proposals from different companies. And yeah, I'll echo what Ryan said, and I'll really punt for Sonata because they did a fantastic job in converting us. They were serious about converting all the customizations. They didn't want to leave anything behind. They had close relationship with Microsoft, and they went to bat for us and saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars by getting us structured properly at Microsoft. They know the Microsoft infrastructure, and they had a detailed, all-encompassing budget that we could monitor against. So it was a fantastic approach. And ultimately, all data was DB converted, no exceptions, able to print invoices, able to run comparative financial statements from the very start. Initially, I was cautious about the offshore route, but that proved to be totally unfounded. If you can move to the next slide. So there were 8 months that we had planned. Goal of no record left behind, much like the Green Berets. Sonata started with a business blueprint, and the first part of the process was to convert our AX 2012 to D365, and they converted everything. And this allowed us to do a collaborative comparison with our own data, which I think is very important for users to see their own data. So the initial sessions, we went over the processes, followed by Sonata. So we went through our processes, followed by Sonata showing us those processes in D365. Very few customizations that were not needed, actually. This is contrary to what they expected, but I think one customization we got rid of was our margin customization, that we used the standard Microsoft one. So then we identified gaps like FTP, label printing, sound was a critical issue part of ours, and shipping in a non-WMS environment was another key thing. So Sonata then went and they converted all the overlays to extensions with using their tools, fantastic experience, and then they took those overlays and we tested them. So Sonata tested first, then the IT team, and then our users were testing. So we addressed most of the issues up front, and we went live, we had very few issues. The UATs were performed on converted data and customizations that allowed the users to identify issues, and then we performed a second UAT on the revised code, and then we went live. So that was our general plan. So if we have a look at the next slide, we'll see ultimately that we came in under budget. I mean, this is unheard of in our company, and it was fantastic. There was quick and quick adoption of the new environment. The functions will work similarly to the AX 2012 environments that we are used to. The SOPs were translated by Sonata for us. We needed some additional training to take advantage of the new UI, but we were able to immediately take advantage of the new release. Early after we went live, Microsoft released new code for credit management. That was a customization that we had, and we were able to get rid of our customization with this really comprehensive credit management feature that Microsoft had. So, and we are continuing to see these new developments coming out from Microsoft, and we are on the Microsoft cadence. We haven't had any problems with the promotion of code. Our entire FTP process is more robust. Batch jobs are executing faster. Our source code control is way superior to what it was before. And Power BI, I mean, we actually took the preview model, unlike Ryan did, and we've had great success with the data lake getting that implemented. So what are my recommendations that you'll see on the next slide? I think we had a very successful conversion. In most aspects, I think our internal development on the integration aspect was lacking. But I think it's critical to get a good partner, and we are lucky. You know, I volunteered to share my experience and to punt for Sonata because of our experience with Sonata. But they're only as good as their consultants that they have. And our consultants, our Sonata consultants, took 100% ownership, working and came in under budget. Their demeanor was fantastic. Their work ethic was great, and they just gelled with our users. It was a great success. I really recommend that if you're doing this convert, do your UATs with your own data. Otherwise, you're not going to know. The users can immediately recognize problems and are familiar with the issues, and they can identify issues straight away. It helps you make a few assumptions. Spend a lot of time up front, plan for Azure and budget for Azure. It gets very expensive, especially if you've got your own pay-as-you-go environments. Start early with the integration. That was our mistake, that we didn't do that. And make sure that communication and management is supporting your project. Let everyone know what's going on, involve users early, and get complete support. I mean, our CFO actually attended all the meetings. So thank you, and I'll wait questions in the next section.
All right, thank you, Rhett. That was great, and look forward to chatting with you here in a bit in our Q&A session. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat window, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes. But right now, we're going to go to Tour DuPont, who is on our global success team for Dynamics. Tour?
Yeah, and just a quick introduction. I worked with AEX since 2000, so 21 years. And yeah, and the last year I've been, year and a half, I've been working on the DMP program, or Dynamics Migration Program, and that's what I will be presenting here. Next slide, please. So the Dynamics Migration Program was put together by Microsoft 1.5 years ago. There was a pilot program, but then 1 year ago we started with Dynamics AX, Dynamics AX assessments for going to the cloud. Then last summer we expanded to Dynamics CIM. And then for selected customers, we actually also have assessments for GP, Great Plains into F&O, and Navision into F&O. If you know about Business Central, if anybody knows about that, that we do not do. It's everything is an assessment for going into the cloud, either F&O, finance and operation, or Dynamics CE, customer engagement, or you might also call it CIM. And the assessment program, we actually work with different vetted partners, Microsoft partners. So Microsoft is responsible for the assessments. But one of our most important partners is Sonata, and I worked with Sonata for the last year, and we have a very, very good cooperation, and I'm actually very impressed with the reports that comes out from Sonata. And you should know I'm not a salesperson. I worked as solution architect with customers, helping customers implement AX for 20 years, 21 years, as I said. And so when I'm impressed about something, then it's actually because it's really, really good. Next slide, please. So the assessment, we decided in Microsoft to do the assessment to answer all the questions that the customer might have. So why should I choose the cloud? Is an on-premise better? If I go to the cloud, do I need to recode everything? And what happens to my customizations, interfaces? What are the benefits for me if I go into the cloud? Is there new functionality in D365 which is not in AX, especially if I'm in AX 2012 R3? Do I get any new things? When I upgrade, is an upgrade, or do I have to re-implement the whole thing and use 4 years to do that, which I did in my last implementation, and so on and so forth. So that's all the question we try to answer through an assessment. Next slide, please. So this is more or less just a timeline of how what happens when you go in and do the assessment. So the assessment, that's the two first pictures where you get valuable insights and into the migration effort, and you work with, for example, Sonata for technical and who has technical and functional migration expertise. And then you'll get the comprehensive assessment report, which was the one I talked about before that I'm very impressed about. And then you, of course, ask questions, have questions and answers. One important thing to understand here is that this is the assessment, and you will also have an assessment of how much it will take to lift your current code and customizations into the cloud. But it doesn't include a project plan or any estimates of how much it will take to actually migrate your whole thing. You cannot do that in 3 days, or even if you have a 3 weeks assessment, that cannot be included. But what it does give you is an excellent tool to talk to your partner or to continue talking to Sonata and then do the actual project planning for the real migration to the cloud. Next slide, please. So what is expected by you? Well, for standard migration assessment, sometimes I call it a 3 days assessment, but that's because Sonata, for example, as the vetted partner, will use 24 hours of their time to do the assessment. And typically the customer will be required to engage 4 to 8 hours. The assessment is, as I already mentioned, done free of charge, and there are no obligations. I mean, it's supposed to help you to make a decision if the cloud is the right option for you or not. I can say that most of the customers we have worked with, after the assessment, they really know about the values of going to the cloud, and I don't think I have anybody that turned it down. We have some that, there's a lot of decision making to do, but mostly after the assessment, people decide that the cloud is a good way to go, and then they continue negotiations and so on. And the only thing you have to do is we will send a customer agreement to you, which actually is the terms and conditions for the free work that Microsoft will be doing through our vetted partners, Sonata. And the only thing you have to do is to reply, I agree to that customer agreement email. And then after that, we'll set up the kickoff meeting, and the account team, Microsoft account team, will set up the kickoff meeting, and that will be with Sonata, and Sonata will then take it from there, doing, that's perfect. Next slide. And they will take it from there and do the next steps in the actual assessment. And we have a handout that I can send to all of you that are interested in this. And this here is for the 3 days assessment. And you see on the first page to the right that it will involve 4 to 8 hours of your time. I will not speak so much more on this slide here, because then it will take all too long. But these are the first 2 pages of the handout that I can send to you. And if you go to the next slide, please. Then here on the third page, you see what is included in the assessment. I wanted to go a little more into details here, but actually Laura from Sonata, she already mentioned most of it. So just on a very high level, what we do is that we start with a kickoff meeting. Then we ask you to provide a model store of your, that this is if it's for AX, a model store of your current environment. And then there's a questionnaire you should fill out. Then there will be a few workshops where also business department leads or subject matter experts will need to attend. So we get an idea of your business and business processes and so on. And then the technical part, this is basically analyzing your model store and get all the information about your code and what it will take to upgrade your code. That comes out of it. And then you will have a report and an assessment report. And usually what happens is that me and my colleagues, we will review the report with Sonata before they present it to you, and then there will be a presentation, and you will of course get the report. Next slide, please. So this is the standard migration assessment. There are other assessment options. Your partner, if you have a partner, and we actually also did that. We did that with customers who had another partner, but actually wanted another point of view. And then in a few cases, we actually chose Sonata to go in and be that partner and do an SMA, just as I explained. But then it's not Microsoft being responsible for it, but the partner. But if you have another partner than Sonata, then you can also use that. The funding is pre-approved, but you do need to apply for it. You will get an answer within 3 days, and then the final approval will take another week or 2. And we actually also have a pilot program with still limited budget, but many people are interested in that. And this is Sonata doing this pilot program on behalf of Microsoft, and where we can do SMAs, and we can also do advanced migration assessment, which usually is from 2 to 4 weeks. And we can do them, in some cases, we would do it for AX to FNO, but it's mostly reserved for GP to FNO and NAV to FNO assessments. So, but that is done by Sonata. And then, thank you. Then finally, we have advanced migration assessments that can be done by your partner. and we have a template for an SOW that the partner has to fill out, and I just inserted in the lower right corner things that will be, you will still do the standard migration assessment, but then you can include 2 or more items from this list. So if you are interested in business value, insight, and proof of concept, then that can be included in the assessment, or any other of those ones mentioned here. And this is funded the same, no, please go back. It's funded the same way as explained before, but there are also requirements to the licenses being purchased. So if you are interested in that, we should set up a meeting and discuss more in details what exactly is required. And next slide, please. And after the assessment, the Dynamics Migration Program has other offers that might help you reduce the cost of the actual migrations. But usually we prefer to wait for the outcome of the assessment before we are discussing that. And then you can discuss that with the account team, with Sonata, with me or my colleagues in the DMP team. And sometimes we, even if you're a big customer and are eligible for fast track engineer support, then we'll also include the fast track engineer in that discussions. So Microsoft and Sonata, we are here to help you on the journey to the cloud. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tor. And so Rathi with Sonata, I know she's been monitoring the chat window. Do we have any questions to bring to the panel?
Yes, Marshall, we do. So there are a couple of questions on the screen. Let me read them one by one. First one goes, we have a complex landscape because of acquisitions. We have AX 2009, a lot of acquired system. What would you recommend would be the right step forward going?
I'm sorry, was that directed towards someone in particular, Rathi, or?
No, I think we can all take a shot at it.
It sounds like,
yeah,
go ahead, Laura.
I'm sorry. Oh, I was just going to say, I don't think that's obviously not a lift and shift. So part of what we have to analyze in doing an assessment with you is what your current processes are and how they fit into a new D365 mode. So it's definitely going to be a hybrid mode. We're not going to lift and shift and just take you from 09 to D365. Instead, we must absolutely assess those business processes. Yeah. Because the 09 is 2 versions back. So we have to kind of assess those processes and how they fit into the newer version.
But in general, I want to add to that a lift and shift where you just upgrade all the code you have. I have had a few customers doing that, but very, very few. But what I've also seen, and I actually seen other partners than Sonata going in and say, hey, you need to do a re-implementation. And this is where the assessment really can help you, and Sonata can help you, because what I have not seen any re-implementation recommendations in any of the reports I've seen. It's always a hybrid approach where you go in and use some of the customizations you have, then you will use the new functionality that is available in D365, and in that way it becomes much cheaper for you. The actual migration becomes much cheaper than if you would do a completely new implementation. So that's really what I love with the reports I've seen from Sonata.
But that said, I can say that we didn't have a lot of customizations, but some of our customizations were involved, and they all came across. You know, we got rid of ultimately 2 major customizations, but the rest we just brought across, and it was painless compared to what I was expecting. So had a good experience there.
Any other
There is
questions,
one
Rath?
question. There's one question that is addressed to Rhett. Rhett, you mentioned user adoption was high. How did you achieve that?
Well, I think the key thing was involve the users early on in the process. And what Sonata did is, as I mentioned, they converted our current database. Our current database was converted to D365, and they took us through, the first part is that our users were showing the Sonata consultants what they do with their SOPs. And then Sonata had actually modified some of those SOPs to reflect in D365. And then Sonata took us through our data in D365, our converted data. And so we involved our users early on in that process. And they were involved in all the UATs and testing. And I think that went a long way towards getting them familiar with the new system. And today, I think very few of them actually remember our previous system. And I think that was key, to get the users involved early on and in the UAT with their own data. That is critical to me. You know, I don't think you get benefit out of looking at Contoso data in a UAT, because as a user, you only recognize your own data, you don't make assumptions. And the toolkit that Thur was referring to, I'm sure we were one of the early adopters of that. The fact that our data was converted and we had problems with collation in our database that was resolved by that was absolutely fantastic. So get those users early on and let them do the UAT on their own data.
So Ryan, anything to add there? I know you're in the process now of that migration and your users involved in that process.
Oh, absolutely. Same story. And we also use our own data for all our testing as well. So yeah, no, I echo Rhett's sentiment there.
Rhett, can you just maybe tell the group how much experience with AX9 when you're migrating to D365 did you find important on a partner or individuals that understood 9 when it was going to D365 and not just purely D365 and had that heritage? Did that play an important role in your user adoption and deployment as well?
You're asking Ryan or me?
Yeah, no, I was asking you, Rhett. I'm sorry.
We were 2012 actually. We were an early adopter of 2012 because we would demonstrate in 2009, but then ultimately when we signed the contract, we implemented 2012. So actually there was very little change, right? I mean, one of the initial customizations we managed to get rid of was the margin calculation. Ours is actually very similar to what Microsoft has, so that was easy. But yeah, I think having that experience and being able to take the applications that we'd already customized, we got some deep modifications in packing, but they stand alone, and those standalone customizations come across very easily. So we try to stay away all the time from modifying the standard Microsoft objects, and I think that helped us a lot.
Okay. There's another question here which says, we do not understand what is new in Dynamics 365. So how do I determine what's best for my business? Marshall, would you want to take that?
I'll just have a quick thing. I'm talking a lot here, but what is amazing is when you look at the cadence of the Microsoft releases. So since we went live, we've had 10 releases from Microsoft, in fact, 11 releases from Microsoft. And there's a separate tool there. Microsoft actually publishes what they're going to release. So you can go online and you can find out exactly what's in those applications. And then often you can decide whether you want to take advantage of that functionality or not. There's a separate section in D365. You can click on the tile and there's all the features that Microsoft have released. And you can decide which features you want to take advantage of and you don't want to take advantage of. So go online, have a look at the releases. Microsoft published them all, and then you can also do that in your software as well and test out the releases in your UAT in your sandbox environment.
Ryan? So
I do the same.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Marshall.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say we do the same thing. We follow the release schedule. Just to correct Brett a little bit, sometimes there's some that you are forced to take. I think there's 3 flavors of releases, but the ones that you're forced are they're not invasive at all. So we kind of take a review, put them in an environment, turn them on, configure them, see what they impact. So it's amazing how much they release, actually. So we go online and I mean, we read it and do research. We have a release manager that really kind of keeps an eye on that stuff, and some huge advantages to keeping your eye on it. But Microsoft makes it all available, and you can see it all online. You can just Google Microsoft release schedule D365 and you'll find it.
And that for me is why we chose the system, because these ERP implementations are expensive and invasive. And with D365, we're finding that we're getting these updates, we're getting new software. I mean, our credit management, that was a complete change and we're strong on credit in our company. So we had to make a lot of customizations in AX to handle this proper credit, all the credit control that we have across our organization. And now we can take advantage of that. And already we're implementing new Microsoft products like e-commerce, and that's coming around and that's available because the system is growing. If we're on AX 2012, we would never have that functionality.
Yeah. I love it when you guys say that.
Yeah, I was just reading about like the industry accelerators too, and it's another one of those things that we love to see coming. We don't know anything about it, but it talks about being able to onboard vendors quickly, making it easier to connect with people that maybe aren't really in your area, and so those are also things that are very exciting to us. So
yeah, I just love hearing that, Rhett and Ryan, because I get asked this question all the time. You know, AX is working just fine for us. What's the difference in Dynamics? And Dynamics is the future. That's where the investment that Microsoft is making, like you're saying, in these continuous updates, the twice yearly, the big updates. The platform is growing on Dynamics F&O. AX is, while it is stable and it's a great platform, it's end of life. It's got a couple of years left in it, and Microsoft's gonna, sunset that product. So Dynamics F&O is the future. So I'm glad you both touched on that.
I was actually amazed at our conversion, that the speed at which our data was available in D365, and so early on we could actually analyze the conversion and see what we needed to get done, and that was amazing for me, that we got there so quickly, and that we were able, as soon as we went live, to start taking advantage of the new functionality that is coming out. It was our goal.
Rathi, do we have any other questions? Because I've got like one or two that I want to ask.
Please go ahead, Marshall.
So you both talked about the Power Platform and the ecosystem of Microsoft. So Rhett, I mean, what other parts of the Microsoft ecosystem are you tying into your Dynamics F&O, like Power Apps, or you mentioned Power BI? You're investigating other features and functions within that ecosystem?
We are. As I mentioned, we took the data lake under preview, and it's been highly successful for us. Actually, we've had to, like Ryan was talking about, there's a lot of batch jobs that prepare the data for the data lake. But that application just governs our company. Power BI, it's incredible. We use Power BI, some of the Power Apps and Power Automation, mainly for monitoring processes in our system. And currently we're integrating that with SharePoint. So that's the area. I see a lot of growth in Power Apps. And I was an old user of SharePoint Designer, so I like the fact that it integrates with SharePoint as well. So we're starting to make use of that. And our relationship with Microsoft is strong, and I think it's been strengthened through Sonata. Ryan,
yeah. And Ryan, you mentioned HoloLens and manufacturing. We're seeing a lot of that, especially with travel restrictions due to the pandemic and being able to put experts in other places. And I just would like to hear more about that story, because it seems like everybody is very excited about HoloLens and how it can actually be used.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it was like a could we do it, and how can we do it? So we did, and we were able to connect, and I could say in my HoloLens, here's the product and here's the inventory count. This is what we have of the product, and so we kind of broke through and said, yep, we can do it. And it's now as soon as we get to the cloud, then that will be a full-scale project for us. So it was just the art of the possible, and it was So I didn't do it, but it was relatively easy to do.
Good to hear. Well, Rathi, do we have any questions that have come in?
There's one last question, which is how long do these assessments that Microsoft sponsors, what is the duration of the assessment?
So, as I said before, I call it a 3-day assessment because you invest 24 hours, the partner invests 24 hours, and you have to use 5 to 8 hours. But usually it's over 2 to 3 weeks. Unfortunately, I have seen some take even longer. I think the worst we had was more than 3 months, and that wasn't with Sonata. But that was simply because the customer didn't come back with the questionnaires, they didn't have time for workshops and so on. But I would say that if everybody is having the resources ready, answering the questionnaire in the beginning, then probably within 2 or 3 weeks you can do it. And then we have the 3 weeks assessment, and that will require 25 hours of the customer's time. So, but again, you can do it within, I've seen 3 to 4 weeks and up to 2 months for that. But if it's only, if the customer is doing everything they should, and Sonata can do it, the 3 weeks assessment actually in 3-4 weeks or so. And Laura, chime in if or Rathi also chime in if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think the assessment, I kind of look at the assessment a little bit as it's a collaborative thing on your availability, on the client's availability. So I always use that term and tell everybody this is what we do all day long. So we can schedule it accordingly, but you all have work to do in your normal day-to-day jobs that you do, and so it's going to be very much dependent on you. But I'm in agreement with you, Tor, that most of our assessments are very quick, 60-day, 90-day assessments or something. But we have some clients that I think, Tori, you're familiar with it, but we do have some clients that we're doing assessments for that have longer periods of time only because they're not available during the times that we need to be available. So they've extended out their timeline a little bit more.
Well, very good.
And you have to remember that when I talk about it, I think I've been through, globally, we have been through more than 100 assessments, probably many hundreds now. So, we have everything from very, very quick to some of the few that I talked about before that took long.
All right, Rathi, are there any more questions? And if not, we've got the link on the screen here that you can reach out to us or reach out to us individually. I'm sure you could find us all on LinkedIn since most of us have a profile there, but I would welcome the opportunity to visit with you and see how Microsoft and Sonata could help you through this transition.
Thank you.
All right, thanks
Thank you
everyone.
much.
Have a great day.
Great day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.